This is my 2019 Light Bee X, and so far we've upgraded the front suspension, the rear suspension, 72 volt battery from Electron Cycles, the Hopetech fork brakes and rotors, along with the Milk Racing riser seat. But in today's video, we're going to push things even further by installing the Nucular P24F controller. So in this video, we're going to go through the unboxing of the controller, the installation, and then we're going to take the Surron out for a rip and just see how much more power this thing can deliver to my Surron. Let's jump into it. So let's open this thing up and see what's inside. So first of all, we've got the controller itself. Really sleek looking, really nice design. And it looks like it's going to fit the bike really well. Next up, we've got all your connections. I'm guessing this is the handlebar mount for the onboard computer. These look like the main connections for the controller. And then these will be the extenders for the phase cables. And then last of all, we've got the main onboard computer. Looks decent, really nice and big display. So I'm excited to see what that looks like on the bike and the sort of information you get from it. So let's jump into it. So first of all, we're just going to undo these Allen key bolts just to get the old torque controller cover off. Then just go ahead and disconnect the old controller from the bike. Next up, we're just going to undo the phase cables and the main battery cables. Disconnect it from the bike itself. Remove it from the bike, ready for the new Nucular P24F controller to be installed. Next up, we're just going to put the new extensions on the phase cables, and bosh, just like that, all three installed. Next up, we're going to put the heat shrink on just to cover up the connectors. I probably would advise using a heat gun rather than a lighter, but it's all I had to hand, so I had to make do. Then it's time to connect the main connectors of the controller to the bike. Then install the surround, ready for the controller to fit in. And then we can connect the controller to the phase cables and the main battery cables. Next up, I'm just going to plug the cables into the correct ports. They're all labelled, so it's nice and easy to find where you need to put them. And then we can go ahead and fit the controller into the surround. Last little bit, we're just going to connect the main cable coming from the controller into the onboard computer. We can then fasten it all up with the back plate with the screws. And the really nice thing I love about this onboard computer is the fact that it goes directly onto the handlebar mounts. So you can see there, you've got a really nice bracket and it fits perfectly onto the head tube that comes out from the forks. And that's it. We're going to pop the battery back in and then we can take this thing out for a rip and see what sort of performance we can get from it. Okay, so let's get this thing out and see what it's all about. So this part of the video, I'm going to talk about how the installation went, the setup of the main screen and setting it up for the 72 volt battery, and then we'll look at the power and what this thing can deliver. So installation was super easy, as you saw, nothing too technical there, just a case of disconnecting the old controller, connecting the two new ones. The only difference that I can see so far on this controller compared to things like the Torp is put the extension on the phase wires. Again, really easy to do. It's just a case of bolting them onto the originals, putting the heat shrink round, and yeah, that's pretty much job done. Then it's just plugging it all in, which again, really easy to do, and connecting it to the bike again as you would. There's only two connections on this one, as the display plugs into the back of the controller rather than the bike. So yeah, super easy. The one thing I really like about the Nucular controller is the fitment. I don't think there's any other controller on the market that fits that nice and that looks that OEM as this controller. I also found that there was quite a lot of room behind the controller to get the phase wires and all the connections in, which if you've ever replaced the stock controller for any sort of aftermarket controller, you'll sort of know it's always a really tight squeeze to be able to get the controller fitted right back against the bike and where it should be. So yeah, another major plus, which just makes the installation so much easier. So once you've obviously got it all connected, it's then setting it up to the bike, which is relatively easy. There is an auto setup mode. All you have to do is go into the settings on the controller, run an auto setup, calibrates everything to the bike. And again, the same sort of things. You need to tell it that you're running a 72 volt battery. You need to tell it your sprocket size. It's all pretty much standard stuff. What I will do in another video is I'll go through the settings, because I could do a whole 20-minute video on the settings within the display. The display itself is fantastic. You've got a lovely big screen, shows you all the information and more than you're ever going to need, which if you're really into your bikes and performance is brilliant. You can go through every parameter you can imagine and get the bike set up for your complete riding style. The one thing I am going to say is you really need to know a little bit about the electrics of your bike in terms of your power outputs, your watts, your amps, and the parameters that you're going to need to run out for your particular setup. When you compare this to things like the Torp's got a great app that you can use for really novice riders. It's just a case of going into the app and just using the slider up and down. I would say the setup on the Nucular is much more for your advanced rider. So yeah, you do really need to know a little bit more about the bike and the setup and what your motor's capable of, what your battery is capable of. What I will say is they have fantastic support though. There's a few things I was unsure of and managed to get hold of them through Telegram, and almost instant response and extremely helpful. Went through every little detail with me and yeah, managed to get the bike running incredibly well. So don't let that put you off if you don't know much about the electrics and parameters of your bike. They are there to help you and they are extremely good at what they do. They really do know their stuff. So that's the installation and the setup covered. So next thing is going to come down to performance. Now, it's all good having a lovely setup and a lovely display, but let's face it, us riders, we want max amount of performance. We want the acceleration to be as fast as possible. And let me tell you, this thing delivers on all angles. So a few little things to go through. Acceleration. This thing accelerates like nothing I've ever experienced. I'm on loose ground at the moment, but it does not matter what speed you are going, this front wheel absolutely tears up. You have to fight the bike to keep it down. Now obviously you can go through all the settings and adjust all of this for your style of riding, but me personally, I love getting out, we love doing wheelies, we love sliding through the mud, so I want my acceleration, my torque to be as much as possible, and this thing just absolutely annihilates, and almost you have to hang on for dear life. The other thing when you're riding places like this as well, obviously there's parts you want to speed up, parts you want to slow down. So the throttle and response and the throttle curve are really important. And I've got to say, it must be one of the smoothest throttle responses I've felt. It's absolutely instant. There is no lag whatsoever. And after we hit these trails, we're going to head out onto the road so you can just see the power where there's no sort of slippy or loose terrain, and you'll just be able to see that this thing is just an absolute animal. And obviously top speed as well. So on the short run down here, easily 70 mile an hour, and I haven't really pushed the field weakening that much just because I am running the stock motor. And this is kind of just a little demonstration of the power delivery. I can't really go fast around here because of the terrain, but coming up to this jump I have to enter it slowly. But your power delivery here, yeah, it's just excessive. It just absolutely rips. It feels so nice. Now I've got the suspension set up with new front and rear suspension, so next video come in will be on the rear suspension that I've opted for, so stay tuned for that one. But now we've got this amount of power and this amount of control and comfort on the bike. It just takes on everything. These are berms obviously for downhill mountain bikers, but it still wants to wheelie. Yeah, very impressed with the amount of power, very impressed with the amount of torque. I'd probably say the torque is a lot more noticeable than anything else. See if we can find another little route. Again, really steep hills, and this thing is just flying. Now obviously it's not going to be all the time that we're going to be thrashing around at sort of 29 kilowatts, and we are going to want to conserve battery. So if you've got unbelievable regen functions on the controller as well, again all set up through the display, and obviously you've got your modes as well, so we can have mode 1, 2 and 3 like most other controllers, but again just really easily accessible through the onboard computer. Another really neat feature, it comes with a lot of extra connectors as well, so anything that you want to connect to the controller and the onboard computer and be able to make it function through the onboard computer is doable. So things like lights, you could actually put the Nucular adapter onto the end of the light cable, and you'd then be able to turn the lights on and off through the onboard computer. Obviously everything's waterproof as well, as you would expect, so there's no worries about that. But yeah, for off-road and everything we've experienced so far, it is 100% past the test. I think what we should do now is head back to a road and that's 30 mile an hour and the wheel still comes up. But yeah, we'll head back to a road and sort of demonstrate the acceleration and top speeds. Okay, so we've come to a little stretch of private road. We are uphill, but you will still get the effect of how much torque this thing and how quickly it gets to those speeds. So 20 mile an hour, and if you're not over that front wheel, you cannot keep this wheel down. So again, 20 mile an hour, and it's still coming up. I've had to push it back down, and we're 40, 50, 55, 60, and brake. It's like a hyper speed. I can't even explain how quickly this thing picks up. We'll run it again just so you can see, but so that's 25 mile an hour, and the front wheel's up, push it back down, 40, 50, 55, 60, 65, brake. This thing would easily hit 70 mile an hour and probably beyond. I'll probably save that for a future video. We might look at changing the sprocket on this, because with this new controller, this battery, the torque is just unbelievable. So I don't think we need such a big sprocket to get this front wheel up for wheelies now. At any speed, this thing will pick up. And you can hear the throttle response in the wheelie of how instant it engages. So I'm going to head back now, I'm going to get the bike cleaned up, and then I'll run through where you can get one of these, and I'll catch you again on the tripod. So there we are, final conclusion on the Nucular P24F controller. This thing looks awesome on the bike. It's such a nice fitment, really easy to control. Like I said, the setup on the onboard computer is a little bit more technical than some of your other controllers like your Torps, but once you get your head around it, it's really simple and really easy. And like I said, they've got fantastic support as well. Performance wise, this is like nothing else I've ever experienced. It is literally like hyper speed. The acceleration is on point, the throttle curve is on point, and overall just an awesome upgrade for the Surron. So I'm going to finish the video there then, guys. I just want to say a massive thank you to Nucular for sending out this controller for me to test and review on the channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description of where you can buy one. As always, thank you ever so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done already, go and hit that subscribe button. If you've got any questions about the controller or anything else regarding the setup, go ahead and drop it in the comments or get in touch through Instagram. But yeah, cheers guys, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.